Okay, so you always say knee pain going away is not the end of rehab. I think we alluded to it in the title. Can you explain what people are missing?
Well, the interesting part around pain is that it's definitely a warning system that tells you something is going wrong. And sometimes that warning system can can be dysfunctional and last too long where it's not helpful. But sometimes the pain will go away and the underlying issues around your knee never were actually treated. And what I find is that, yeah, I want your pain to go away, but specifically with your knee, there's four criteria to me that are just as important that I don't want to end rehab before those four are back to normal.
Welcome back to another episode of the Past Your Prime podcast. We're here today to record episode 22.
Big 2-2.
Craig Smith PT on IG, Spiker Kiker with the big caps here. Normally we'd go into injury updates, but I've got no new injury updates to talk about today.
That's actually very exciting. So no new injuries.
Yeah. But we're going to talk about my most recent injury today, which is my knee pain, which is not anything significant, but it will be the premise for our episode. So today is going to be the PYP guide to knee pain. And even if your knee signs seem that things are good to go, you're probably still not ready.
That'd be kind of messed up.
Yeah.
Like no matter what, we have something to sell you. Like no matter what, you're not ready for anything.
So yeah, maybe your knee feels good, but you still need to buy our knee pain guide when it comes out.
Just so you know, this is all free. So not trying to sell anything on that one. But to go back, the only reason Alex doesn't have a new injury is that we are recording 2 episodes today. I want to make sure everybody understands he didn't all of a sudden get more effective at managing his body. It's only been like 1 minute since we finished last episode.
Correct. And this is because next Sunday is Mother's Day. So shout out to all the mamas out there.
I mean, he made it sound weird to me, but it's cool. I like it.
You don't want to shout out your mother?
The way you said it was funky. I don't know. Happy Mother's Day, Mom. I'm very happy that you're my mom.
Likewise. Oh, got weird there. Anyway,
okay.
My mom, I don't think, has knee pain. She's got some ankle pain, but we're not here to talk about that today.
No.
So
my mom.
Hope your ankle's feeling better, Mom, but we're talking about knee pain today.
Mom, this episode is absolutely directed at you. You should be listening to this, and it will help you a lot.
And the other mom that I love is the mother of my children. She has significant knee pain. So this one might be for you, Audrey.
I remember when she rode her knee down the stairs like it was a surfboard.
She's ridden down quite a few stairs in her life.
Oh,
unfortunately.
Wow. I remember getting a panic call from her where she told me what she did. I was like, she's like, do you think I tore my ACL? I was like, I don't know. Like, that's a crazy way to go down the stairs. I love it.
Yeah. She has fallen down the stairs, I think, holding both of my children, and neither of the children got hurt. So
God, she is. I mean, but she is a straight up athlete, though.
Even though her knees do not function whatsoever, she is still more athletic than me.
Goof.
Yeah,
she's very, very athletic. She did give me permission to talk about her knees, so you guys know. She probably
did not actually.
No, I asked her.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. She said
you'll be getting a text. Okay, so you always say knee pain going away is not the end of rehab. I think we alluded to it in the title. Can you explain what people are missing?
Well, the interesting part around pain is that it's definitely a warning system that tells you something is going wrong, and sometimes that warning system can be dysfunctional and last too long where it's not helpful. But sometimes the pain will go away and the underlying issues around your knee never were actually treated. And what I find is that, yeah, I want your pain to go away, but specifically with your knee, there's 4 criteria to me that are just as important that I don't want to end rehab before those 4 are back to normal.
Okay, we'll talk about those in a little bit, but how do you know if someone is actually ready to return to normal training? Are there kind of key signs that you look towards in terms of being?
Yeah, I mean, one of the biggest things is like we've talked about the phases before, like phase 1, 2, and 3. Phase 1, right, is getting the right diagnosis. Phase 2 is making sure that you can handle your own symptoms and pain and you can make yourself feel better. Phase 3 is where we build up your tissue capacity so it equals your exercise capacity. We know people are ready to move on from us when they address these contributing factors to symptoms, but also that they can do whatever activity they want to do. And there's no change in any key sign, whether that's knee extension, joint swelling, loss of knee flexion, pain, anything like that, that they're able to do all their activity and there's no regression in symptoms or recurrence of symptoms.
Cool. Now we can get back to the 4 things that you look at before someone, quote unquote, is cleared for normal activity. The first one is knee extension. Why is that such a big deal?
Can I add one other thing?
No.
Okay, so so the reason that I actually think it's these 4 things are important is that in physical therapy and in rehab in general, we've had this shift towards talking about the glute in a way that's it's almost like the glute is the exercise that indicates your knee is healthy. I just don't agree with that thought process, and we're going to have a part where we talk about that more. So these 4 things to me are the primary things after we get pain resolved, and often can be the things that make pain get better. The knee is a fascinating structure that deals with tons of forces every time you take a step, and that's why it's so critical that you regain everything that we're about to go through.
Okay.
Cool.
Ready?
Okay, knee extension.
Yes. Why is it so important?
Okay, first off, every person who walks, which is hopefully most people, they go through a really standard gait cycle. You hit with your heel, your foot goes flat, your body then travels over that fixed foot, and then it repeats over and over again. During your gait cycle, you have 2 times where your knee goes completely straight. And if it doesn't go completely straight, you have to do something to mitigate that loss of knee extension. You either jam your knee, you do some level of co-contraction, or you try to offload that foot faster that you don't have the motion in. And so if you don't have knee extension, and let's say you do 10,000 steps in a day, you basically have 20,000 traumas to your knee.
That's a lot of trauma.
It's an insane amount of trauma. And the wild part is you won't realize it oftentimes initially that it's hurting you unless it's white hot. It's one of the biggest reasons that people will have. We have like a yo-yo effect that is really common with the knee where people will feel good and then they feel bad and they feel good and then they feel bad. And often what's happening is they are having uncontrolled, we call it activity creep, uncontrolled increases in their step count, and they don't realize that they're not handling every step well. And so they basically blow their knee up, and then it kind of feels better because they have a good working home plan, and then they increase their step count, and then their knee blows up again. It's typically because you don't have complete knee extension and you traumatize your knee joint twice every time you take a step.
Are folks generally aware that they're missing their knee extension, or are they just compensating as they're walking?
I think in extreme motion loss, people will be pretty aware of it. It'll feel painful, especially when they go into extension. But what I find is you can have a 5-degree or less extension loss and be completely unaware of it. Oftentimes people think their knee feels stiff, or they'll notice something's different side to side, but they won't actually know that they're missing the extension.
Could that be due to joint swelling, which I'm currently dealing with?
It could be because joint swelling could absolutely be a component of it. Joint swelling in itself could also make the knee feel stiff, but those are two distinct things, and it can hide it, but oftentimes it's its own issue.
I'm also trying to envision somebody walking without full knee extension, and it just looks like somebody weird, like walking with their knees bent the whole time, like a kangaroo or something.
It's not that weird looking. What it will typically look like is they'll have a shorter step length on one side. It will almost look like they're limping. The most common way that I see it is it looks like their leg is stiff And by stiff, I don't mean it looks inflexible. It means that they, instead of going through in the extension and flexion cycles that normally happen during walking, it just basically stays in the same place the whole time. And that stiffness is typically caused by a co-contraction, which is typically caused because you don't have enough motion in the knee to go into complete knee extension. The issue with it is that your body and the way that we move, it's all about being able to keep forward propulsion. And when you have a knee like that, you basically run out of motion and you put the brakes on multiple times through your gait cycle. So it becomes really inefficient, really easy for you to piss it off. It's really easy for you to basically make the joint get dramatically worse. And the unfortunate part is, as a joint gets arthritic, it's really common for you to lose knee extension. So you have these people who get stuck in these, like you have individuals that will get, you know what a cortisone injection is?
I do.
They'll get stuck in a cortisone injection doom loop. And what a doom loop is, whenever our team uses it, it's where a treatment that is applied actually causes symptoms to go away, but doesn't address the root issue, which allows you to make the root issue worse. So a doom loop with your knee using cortisone is you have knee pain and don't have complete knee extension. They do a cortisone injection, it takes away your pain, and so you're now able to walk pain free, but then it makes your knee extension loss worse. And now you just get stuck. Now, okay, initial time I did it, I got 6 months of symptom free after the cortisone. Oh, my problem solved. And then after you do the next one, now it's only got 5 months. This last time I only got 2 months. Now it's like I didn't get any relief at all when I got my last cortisone injection. That's a doom loop, and it basically spirals you to a total knee.
I'm pretty sure I watched Audrey get one, and man, a needle to the knee, it just did not look fun at all. She may have been getting aspirated. I can't remember specifically, but it just looked horrible.
Oh man, I remember there's a surgeon that I was shadowing for a day, and I remember him aspirating this knee, and it was a little old lady, and he aspirated her knee, which means he took a needle into the knee joint and he pulled out the extra fluid.
Just a bunch of yellow jelly came out.
It was all brown. Like. Oh. It was all brown. I mean, there's like blood in the joint and everything. And he looked over and he goes, "I thought you saw that you can't smuggle beer into the clinic." And she looked mortified. She's like, I didn't know. I was like, no, he's just joking. But it kind of sucks that you can get stuck in this doom loop, which cortisone injections, recurrent cortisone injections without matching a therapeutic thought process or rehab plan, you're almost inevitably going to be going into a doom loop because you're basically masking usable symptoms that allow you to actually rehab it.
And then how do you test your knee extension?
Easiest one is to just stay, if you want to right now, as you guys listen to this, stand up and lock your knees back. Do they both go back the same amount? And then the other one is, do they feel the same? So if you lock them back and you feel stiffness in the front of your knee, or if it's very obvious you can't go as far, you've already lost knee extension. And as soon as you've lost knee extension, your prognosis, in my opinion, is dramatically worse. I think it is the number one sign to make sure you have full and complete knee extension on both knees. It's equal. And if it's not, that's a huge issue.
And you did a knee extension test for me just laying down.
Yes, and you had full knee extension.
That's great. I love hearing that.
Full knee extension is different than full hyperextension, but what I'm saying is I would like whatever you have on the side that doesn't bother you, it's equal side to side.
Right. I did not test as well in this second metric.
No. So if you guys remember, Alex irritated his knee. He was having back of his knee pain. And then what else happened? Hamstring pain.
Yeah. And then my arm hurt.
And then his arm hurt. And I don't think the arm hurting is actually what caused his knee joint to swell, but he has a positive minimal effusion test. We did a brush and sweep test, and when I basically cleared one side of his joint capsule on his knee, brushed the other side, you saw a little blop of fluid go back to the other side.
He showed me. It was disgusting.
Yeah.
It was like a little balloon filled up on one side of my knee.
It's nauseating. And his knees,
I threw up everywhere.
Yeah, they look even smaller than normal because of his calf size.
Yeah.
So it's even more disturbing when you catch a fusion in that type of a situation.
Oh, goodness. Okay.
Anyway.
So metric 2, joint effusion. What's the problem with swelling if the knee doesn't really hurt?
Well, the first one is that it's not healthy for the joint in itself. having this chronic inflammatory process happening inside the joint. But to me, one of the biggest issues is that you get what's called arthrogenic inhibition.
We
And
talk a lot about inhibition, so tell me about
I
this
think it's
one.
critical to monitor for them because it is such a common problem that I think it's very easy to miss or to mistake an inhibition as weakness, which we covered in the last episode. This is fascinating, but there's been a few studies that have shown this where they'll take, I think, as little as 2 mils of fluid and they inject it into the joint, and that will actually cause the quad muscle not to fire as well. Individuals who come in, they'll notice that they can't fire that quad muscle as well. Like they'll say, it doesn't feel like it turns on. It feels like I have a dead quad. Look, my quad muscle is actually smaller. Like so, if you notice actual atrophy, I almost always look for was there a nerve, like a back issue, or some nerve that was involved, like the femoral nerve, or do they have chronic joint diffusion? And it's very common for it to be chronic joint swelling, and what they'll feel is like, oh, I was just moving, my knee popped a little bit, and then felt unstable for 3 or 4 days, and then I gradually got better. And what I find in these individuals is that they're having chronic, recurrent joint irritations, well, traumatic synovitis that they don't realize that they're having. They basically keep recurrently jamming their knee, and over time, the joint just stays swollen, and then they lose their ability to fire their quad.
I've got this hopefully just more acute than chronic.
Yours is just acute.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Don't want any
Yeah.
chronic knee problems over here.
No, we do not.
Can you actually feel it when the swelling is messing with your strength? I felt like when I was doing some leg presses earlier that like I could definitely feel it more in one side than the other.
Yeah,
And is
if
that a problem?
it is a problem, one of the easiest, yeah, it's definitely a problem. If you notice that one side doesn't fire as well, doing something as simple as like a long arc quad, where you're sitting, no weight, and you just straighten your knee out and fire the quad, pain-free range it doesn't matter if you go full range if knee extension hurts. But if you do that and just get the muscle to fire and then you redid the activity, you would probably most of that difference would probably resolve, especially in an acute situation. But chronic or recurrent situations, it can be much more difficult to get the quad to fire again, especially if the swelling is not being managed.
That's like a low weight leg extension is what you were.
Yeah, so I wouldn't use weight. I don't
Okay.
really like loading knee extension, especially in this situation, because the patellofemoral joint can go anywhere between 5 to 7 times the body weight if you basically put a ton of load on a long lever, being basically like a seated leg extension machine. So anytime somebody has knee pain, it's just not an exercise I want to go for, because if I want to strengthen the quad, there's better ways to do it. And there's a high risk versus reward. And if I know that their joint's swollen, I'm concerned about giving somebody a tendinopathy because the quad will become dysfunctional.
Okay, maybe I'll have to stop doing those. Alrighty, next. I think you already hit it, but it sounds like you only need kind of a very small amount of swelling in the joint to kind of have a negative effect.
Extremely small. I do think there's even some evidence that you can have where we can't even capture the swelling. The knee joint's perfect. It's the easiest joint in the body to tell if it's swollen, doing something like the brush and sweep. But there's another test, they're called the blottable test, where the swelling is so much it lifts your patella, and you can get a little bump, like a little tap of the patella onto the femur. That's a really bad sign. It means your knee joint's very swollen. In those situations, you're going to have a very hard time getting the quad to fire normally and have it just be sustainable. But yeah, you can have even a small amount. So if somebody's having a hard time firing their quad, and even if their exam is completely negative and I don't catch any fusion, oftentimes if I traction the knee joint and then have them do some level of quad activation, it works a lot better because there's probably some joint irritation.
And I think straight leg raises are our preferred method of quad activation.
It's one of my favorite ones. The straight leg raise is really nice for a few different reasons, but if you don't have full knee extension, it can be an issue. So it doesn't have to be completely straight. It's just straight enough. But I like the isometric position, like that you're not having to move the knee. You're able to fire the quad in a way that doesn't require the knee joint to move. That's why I really like it. So especially if you hurt different ranges. So to answer his question about why we like it, yes, I agree with you, Alex. I don't know why I had to take 50
That's all right.
minutes to say that. Yeah.
You get all weird about these things. That's fine. Uh, Third metric is knee flexion. So the opposite of extension. This is putting your heel to your butt, I assume.
It is. Now, knee flexion is, I think, the one I would actually say people tend to notice really easily. I think it's because you have to go so far to get full knee flexion. So people will catch even slight differences in knee flexion. It's not nearly as important to me as knee extension or joint diffusion. But it is important, but to be functional, you don't have to have complete knee flexion. Alex is one of the rare people who I think goes to full, you do ass to grass squats, right?
Correct.
Not many people are able to do that unless, do you see very many people go to do those?
No.
It's not common. I think it's actually very valuable that you're able to do that. But if you think about it, what other activities do you go into full knee flexion on?
I had a bunch of inappropriate things going in my head, and I chose to reserve myself. Yeah.
He plays a fit. Oh, that's ridiculous, man. So kneeling positions, like if you're putting like your like a prayer position is a common one where people will come in and they'll notice that they can't go full depth.
When I was a small child, my grandma, who has now passed, but she was from Korea, she played Tetris a lot. And the position that she played Tetris in was feet flat, full squat. And so I would just mimic her and play Tetris with her, and we would just be both on the ground, full squat, playing Tetris.
Really?
Yeah. And I mean, she was like, obviously my grandma, so she was super old.
That is actually I love the idea. I mean, that is incredible that you have these things. If you don't quit doing it, you're able to keep doing it.
I didn't even think about that until just now, but yeah, she could fully squat all the way down and would just sit there for hours playing Tetris like that.
So cool. Because in that position, she wasn't firing any muscle.
Right.
She's basically just in a balanced position.
And I've ever since then basically been able to hold that same position as well. I'm one of the few people I know that can go to a full squat flat on my feet. And
it looks good when I've seen you do it. Yeah. The knee flexion piece, to me, it's a sign of joint health, which is why I think it's so important that you try to get as much of it back as you can. I really like to get full knee flexion back, equal side to side. I know that there's sometimes be like normative values that has to be at 130 or has to be some other. I don't care. I really just care that it gets equal to whatever your normal side is.
So it doesn't necessarily have to be hamstring to calf.
I would like that.
That's the ideal.
That's the ideal. I like, we have like a soft infill, so it shouldn't feel firm. It should feel like there's muscles basically being pushed together. Whereas when you go into extension, it should feel like a hard infill. And I want the infill to be the same on both sides.
So you're going to have folks that are either overcompensating or undercompensating on one side versus the other.
It can sometimes happen.
Can't get all the way into that full depth.
Yeah, and the more you irritate the joint, typically the more you'll lose it in both directions. Okay. But the one that you typically lose motion in first is going to be knee flexion. So loss of knee flexion is a big one for long-term joint health. Another big thing around it that I've seen is if you don't have full knee flexion and say you trip and fall and get forced into knee flexion, those are just nasty rehabs. They're just not fun. But that means that if you're getting full motion, it means you have good meniscal mobility. It means that your joint overall is healthy. It means you don't have any muscle length issue or inappropriate overactivation of certain muscles. So it's just it's a sign of a good, healthy knee joint.
You talked a little bit about how knee extension kind of affects walking and day-to-day. How does a loss of knee flexion affect your day-to-day?
It depends on the amount. If you have full motion, you can do everything you want to do. If you have 130 degrees, you're going to notice some level of things where you can't bend your knee enough to perform a normal motion for it. But then if you start to get below like 110, 100 degrees, you won't be able to ride like a bike. There's like certain things that you won't have enough motion to do to produce normal movement. And that's where people often come in. They miss the subtle signs because they're not actively doing that day to day. But then there'll be some activity that they don't have the adequate amount. Those are where we start to catch those people. But then that means that they probably had a long period of time without full motion.
And I'm trying to think about this logically, like sitting is obviously 90 degrees for most people. So then
it's typically more.
Okay.
Because, right, like even if you think about it, when you're sitting, if you have your feet back a little bit, you're going to be like 100 degrees.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it could affect that even, just the way that you
100%.
Yeah, interesting.
Especially, and then we also will catch people will struggle to get out of their chair. So if individuals have like older typically, but if they're actually at 90 and they can't forward lean, they actually can't get out of the chair.
Yeah, I can. One of my knees just crunches every time.
Every time.
Yeah. because I sit on a little stool when I'm helping my daughter take a bath or, in the restroom. And every time I get up from that thing, I'm like, oh, yeah, they crunched again.
Well, in crunching too, I often wonder with the crunching, if it's not painful, I don't really typically care. But over time, especially as the capsule and all the structures of the area get healthy and aren't as inflamed, a lot of times that crepitus noisiness will go away. But there's definitely, I've seen individuals where it never goes away, even if they get all of these things back to normal.
That's promising.
I know,
No,
that's
just
crazy.
leading with some sorrow. Fourth metric is quad strength.
So your quad is the primary force absorber during any activity that requires lower extremity. So if you're walking, it's primarily quad. Running is primarily quad. If you're doing anything where you're having to jump and land, your quad is going to be a humongous piece of the force generating and force absorption component. It's such a critical muscle. If you don't have complete knee extension, you often can't get full strength. If you have joint effusion, you're having constant inhibition. And if you don't have full knee flexion, all of those things are going to compromise the strength in your quad. And over time, the actual muscle itself will atrophy and become dysfunctional and weaker and inhibited. So you have this like whole trifecta of crap that basically makes your quad incredibly weak, which then means that it's incredibly vulnerable to every activity you do for daily living.
And then once you kind of get to that weakness stage in your quad, it's pretty difficult to get that strength back.
It can be very difficult. And actually, what I like to do is I'll build in compensations to let the muscle get back, because oftentimes that muscle can't handle what it needs to be able to do for daily activities. We'll give people tools to make it to basically step in and compensate enough so you quit traumatizing the knee joint so that the quad can actually get strong again. But if your knee joint's compromised, you can't get normal strength back. That's why like each of these things is really important. If you have swelling in your knee, getting full quad strength back is going to be incredibly difficult, especially long term. You may be able to activate it, recurrently activate it through activity, but it's always going to get back to where it gets turned off and then gets weaker.
I assume it's not necessarily about the size of your quads, but I could be wrong. Or is it more about kind of the control of your muscle? Or is it both?
Great question. The I think the most important part to me is control, right? Like a step down test would be a great test. Like I always think if you're going to be somebody who wants to run and walk, I really like to see 20 lateral step downs, which is where you're standing on one box and you're about anywhere between 8 to 6 inches from the ground. And you basically do a single leg squat, let the heel touch on the other ground, just touch, and then come back up. That's a huge quad load. And if you can't do that, it's going to be very hard for you to do things like steps, run, even walk, like going downhill. All those things will overload your knee joint.
I saw somebody at the gym doing step downs like full body, like 40-inch box,
Oh, nice.
stepping down all the way. And I was just like blown away. I can usually do like the 18-inch box with a little bit of weight and feel pretty good about it. I've moved away from those in probably the last 2 months. I just recently put them back in my plan, so I'll be doing those more often. But I was just so thoroughly impressed with not only like the flexibility, range of motion. I think they even did have a little bit of load that they were doing through it. So
It's a great exercise.
yeah, and it's incredibly difficult. Also, small brag, I did a pistol squat on a BOSU ball all the way hamstring to calf this past week with the knee that doesn't hurt, just to be
does
very specific.
Does anybody else? So first off, that is actually really cool.
So the same guy that keeps challenging me to jumping contests at the gym was doing them. He's like, "Can you do this?" And I was like, "I actually don't know." He's like, "Why are you doing this single leg balance? You should be doing it on the BOSU ball." And then it turned into single leg pistol squats on the BOSU ball.
Is anybody else surprised that he gets hurt? That's my question.
My leg was shaking so much.
The instincts of this guy are so off the wall horrible. I love it though.
Well, awesome, and I don't know if you've heard of like Strengths Finder, Strengths Builder, the different, ideological strengths that you can do these tests for. So I've done several of them over the years, and it's changed over the years. But the very first time I did a competition was my number one. And so I think in certain walks of my life, competition still reigns far above anything else that I do. And so like when it's like, you can't do this, it's like, all right, well, let me show you.
Game on. Yeah. Like, no, I can do this. I love it.
But now I want to try it with this joint diffused knee and see if I can do it or not.
So, okay, once again,
am I going to hurt myself?
Horrible decision.
Okay. All right.
I love that you heard that, and his brain goes, oh, yeah, I got to do a pistol squat tomorrow. No, so the right order would be he has full knee extension. He has joint diffusion. We want that. So he has to pre-fire his quad. We want to do some level of joint traction to handle the joint irritation. And then if you want to do some variant of a pistol squat, we could test it in a very safe way, like
a single leg squat.
Yes, there we go. Oh, okay. That would make way more sense. Or you could do Alex, which is, let's do a BOSU squat and blow my knee.
I thought my whole lower body was going to crumble, but then I completed it, and I was very impressed with myself.
Honestly, I would be too. You're getting stronger. Yeah. Which side is the calf issue on? Is it the right side?
Yeah, same as the.
So the other thing you have to be careful with on that though is that's a huge calf load too.
Okay.
So your calf. So you just want to make sure.
I'll just eat extra bananas and drink Pedialyte.
Oh my god.
We've proven those don't work.
Oh my god, guys.
All right.
Quad strength is important. So that's the 4 that I really think are critical. Complete knee extension, no joint diffusion, full knee flexion, quad strong, really, really strong.
All right. And our bonus is the glutes. The glutes came up a lot last episode. Where did the glutes play into this? They don't at all?
No, the glutes are incredibly important. My brain does not like to go for glutes in an obsessive fashion. I don't think that people are predisposed to just having weak glutes. I think that there's something that's driving it. And I don't like to go for that before I go for those 4. Not that you can't go for glute strength, but I do think it is not used in a way that I would recommend. And I'm somebody who, one of the rotations I did it with probably the guy who's best known for popularizing the use of, or the thinking around why the glutes are so important for people. Clinically, I see those 4 things get missed, and people are obsessed with the glute strengthening exercises. They'll come in and they'll have like really strong glutes, but then they don't have complete knee extension. Or they have really strong glutes, but they have a horribly swollen knee and painful knee flexion. I think what's happened is we have this culture, especially in rehab, of making sure to check the box on glutes, and these other 4 things get missed very easily.
All righty. So to wrap it up, if you are dealing with one of these 4 issues, what's your first step?
Check knee extension first. And if you don't have full knee extension, the easiest way to get it back is using a tool called an ideal knee. The second way is to do terminal knee extensions. Those are my 2 favorite ways to work on getting knee extension. Now, say you're not sure why, but it's really stiff and it hurts when you walk, put a heel lift in. And that'll basically compensate so that you quit hurting your knee every time you take a step. Those are like the easiest places to start. If you have joint effusion, activate your quad before any activity you do. Just do like the long arc quad or straight leg raise. That'll get the quad to fire really well. And then wear something to prevent extra swelling from getting inside the joint, like a compression sleeve. If you do those 2, you'll probably regain some knee flexion, and the activity you're currently doing will actually help your quad get stronger. And that actually starts to cause a positive loop instead of a doom loop. It's a virtuous loop that actually gets your knee healthier and healthier.
We'll try and remember to drop a link to the ideal knee that you can purchase.
We should also do those super bands.
Yeah.
We'll put those. So if you guys need any of those things, go ahead and look when we post this on our website.
Last but not least, do you need to be perfect on all 4 to be able to move on to your active routine?
The only ones that sometimes, if you have a really bad knee extension contracture or knee flexion contracture, those can take sometimes years to fully resolve. And so I won't in those situations, but I really like to make sure that there's a plan. So long term, it's going to be getting better. But no, you don't have to. It just has to be stable.
And don't go do single leg pistol squats on a BOSU ball.
If you guys could channel Alex and do the opposite You'll be fine.
Alrighty.
Worst instincts ever.
We'll
Oh
see
my
if I try it
God.
or not. Maybe I'll wait. Maybe I'll wait a
Oh
week.
my God. I love it. Cool. Yeah.
Cool. I think that that ties it up. Drop a comment below if you're dealing with knee pain. I think we'll dive into knee pain more in future episodes. I'd like to talk maybe about knee pain specifically for jumping athletes at some point, because I think if you are a jumping or even a running athlete, at some point you're going to run into knee pain. Really, all athletes have dealt with knee pain. So
Most common areas body hurt.
yeah, I think it's a cool topic that we'll talk about more. Aside from that, like, comment, subscribe, share. Go to pastureprime.com for more. We're building it up there. And that's all I got.
PYP, baby.
Peace.